What if I told you, the person you are becoming tomorrow is already being decided by the choices you are making today? When you look at your life carefully, you will realize something very powerful. Nothing in your current reality appeared randomly. It all came from decisions. Not big dramatic moments only, but small everyday choices that you probably didn't even think were important at that time. What to do, what to ignore, what to start, what to delay. These decisions silently shaped your direction. And that is why I say your entire life is not built on dreams. It is built on decisions, because dreams are easy. Anyone can dream. A person lying on a bed, a person scrolling on a phone, a person sitting with no direction. All of them can dream about success, money, respect, and a better future. But dreaming alone has never changed a single life. What changes life is the moment when a person decides, enough. Now I will act. That is the real turning point. Not the dream itself, but the decision to move because of the dream. Think about your past for a moment. You are not where you are today because of one huge event. You are here because of thousands of small decisions. The decision to wake up or stay in bed. The decision to study or waste time. The decision to focus or get distracted. The decision to speak kindly or react emotionally. Each of these choices looked small at that moment, but together they built your current reality like bricks forming a wall. And this is the part most people never understand. Life does not change in one giant leap. It changes through repeated decisions that slowly shift your direction. You don't suddenly become successful one day. You become successful because one day you decided to try. Then another day you decided to continue. Then another day you decided not to quit. And slowly, those decisions become your identity. Even your current habits are nothing more than repeated decisions that became automatic. You didn't wake up one day and suddenly become disciplined or undisciplined. It was a series of choices, and those choices kept repeating until they turned into your lifestyle. That is how powerful decisions are. They don't just affect moments, they shape patterns, and patterns eventually shape destiny. Now think about the opposite side. Every regret you carry today also started from a decision to delay, a decision to ignore, a decision to choose comfort instead of effort. At that moment, it didn't feel like a big deal. It felt normal, even harmless. But when those decisions repeated, they created distance between you and the life you wanted. Not because you lacked ability, but because you delayed action. And this is where the truth becomes uncomfortable but necessary. Your dreams are not far away because they are impossible. They are far away because your decisions are inconsistent. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not made of talent alone. It is made of repeated choices that either build you or break your direction. Every successful person you admire once stood at the same point you are standing right now. The difference is not that they had special opportunities from the beginning. The difference is that at some point, they made a decision that changed everything. A decision to take responsibility. A decision to stop waiting. A decision to act, even when it was uncomfortable. And once that decision was made, their entire direction shifted. Because one decision can do that. It can completely rewrite your path. It doesn't matter how lost you are, how late you feel, or how many times you failed before. The moment you make a strong, conscious decision to change direction, your story starts to move in a new way. Not instantly in results, but instantly in direction. And that is the real message hidden in this truth. You are not trapped by your past, you are guided by your decisions. And every new decision you make is a chance to rebuild your future from this moment onward. So if your life is made of decisions, then the most important question is not what you dream about. The real question is what you are deciding right now that will shape everything that comes next. When we talk about life-changing moments, most people imagine something big, something dramatic, something that happens once in a lifetime. But in reality, life doesn't change in one sudden explosion. It changes in one small decision that quietly redirects everything that comes after it. That is the power most people underestimate. One small decision, made in a normal moment, can completely reshape your future without you even realizing it at the time. Think about it carefully. The difference between two completely different lives often starts from something that looked extremely ordinary. One person decides to wake up early and work on their goals, while another decides to sleep a little longer. One person decides to study when they feel lazy, while another decides to postpone it for later. One person decides to take responsibility, while another decides to avoid pressure. In that moment, it feels like nothing special is happening. But in reality, that single choice is already creating two completely different directions in life. Because decisions don't show their impact immediately. They are quiet in the beginning. They don't announce their importance. You don't feel the result instantly. That is why people underestimate them. But slowly, as time passes, those small decisions start stacking up. And when they stack up, over weeks, months, and years, they don't remain small anymore. They become your entire reality. A single decision to focus for 1 hour might not seem powerful, but repeated every day, it becomes knowledge, skill, and confidence. A single decision to waste 1 hour might also seem harmless, but repeated every day, it becomes distraction, delay, and regret. That is how silently your future is being shaped. Not by one big moment, but by one repeated direction chosen again and again. And this is where the real shift happens in understanding life. Most people think they need a huge opportunity to change their life. But the truth is, they already have what they need: a decision. Because opportunity is not always something outside you. Sometimes opportunity is simply the moment when you decide to act differently than before. That one moment becomes the turning point that changes everything that follows. Every person you see who achieved something meaningful in life once stood at a point where they had the same choice: continue the same pattern or change direction. And in that moment, it was not talent that defined them, it was decision. They decided to try when it was uncomfortable. They decided to continue when it was difficult. They decided to improve when it was easier to stay the same. And that one shift in decision changed the entire path of their life. What makes this even more powerful is that one decision does not only change your actions, it changes your identity. Because once you decide to do something repeatedly, it becomes part of who you are. You don't just do discipline, you become disciplined. You don't just do hard work, you become someone who works hard. And that transformation begins from a single moment of choice. But on the other side, the same rule applies in reverse. One small decision to ignore responsibility, one small decision to avoid effort, one small decision to choose comfort over growth. All of these seem harmless individually. But they also stack up. And slowly, they build a completely different identity, one that feels stuck, confused, and disconnected from potential. So when we say one small decision can completely redirect your future, it is not an exaggeration. It is the reality of how life works. Your future is not waiting for a big miracle. It is responding to your smallest consistent choices right now. And the direction of those choices is quietly deciding the version of life you will eventually live. And that means every ordinary moment carries extraordinary weight, because hidden inside it is a decision that can either continue your old path or completely change the direction of everything that comes after it. When people think about change, they often push it into the future. They say things like, "Someday I will start. Next month I will improve. When the time is right, I will change." But the problem is not lack of intention. The problem is delay. Because life does not change in someday. Life only changes in now. And this is where most people lose their direction without even realizing it. The present moment is the only real power you have. The past is already written, and the future is not yet in your control. But the present, this exact moment, is where decisions are made. And those decisions are what shape everything that comes after. That is why now is not just a point in time. It is a point of transformation. It is the only place where change is actually possible. Most people underestimate this. They think they need the perfect mood, perfect environment, perfect timing, but perfection never arrives. And while they are waiting for everything to align, life continues moving forward. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. And months quietly turn into years. And suddenly, They realized that the perfect time they were waiting for was never coming at all. Because time does not wait for preparation. Time only responds to action. The moment you choose to act, even in an imperfect situation, you begin to shift your reality. It doesn't matter how small that action is. What matters is that it happens in the present. One step taken today has more power than 100 plans made for tomorrow. Think about it deeply. Every skill you admire, every success story you respect, every transformation you look up to, none of it started in the future. It started in a single present moment where someone said, "I will begin now." Not later, not after everything is ready, but now. That decision to act immediately is what separated their future from their past. And this is where the truth becomes very clear. Someday is just an illusion that delays change. It gives comfort to your mind but takes progress from your life. It makes you feel like you are planning, but in reality you are pausing. And the longer you stay in someday, the further you move away from the life you want. On the other hand, now is uncomfortable at first. Because it demands responsibility. It doesn't allow excuses. It forces you to face reality instead of escaping it. But that discomfort is exactly what creates transformation. Growth never feels easy in the beginning, but it always starts in the present moment of decision. And here is something very important to understand. Your future self is not waiting in a distant place. Your future self is being created right now in this very moment. Every action you take today is shaping who you will become tomorrow. So if you keep postponing now, you are not delaying tasks. You are delaying your own growth. Even small actions become powerful when they are done in the present with consistency. 1 hour of focus today is more valuable than 10 hours planned for later. One decision made now has more impact than 100 ideas stored for the future. Because life rewards action, not intention. And the most powerful people in life are not the ones who had more time. They are the ones who respected the present moment. They understood that now is not just a second passing by, it is an opportunity being given. And they used it before it disappeared. So when we say the power of now is greater than someday, it is not just motivation. It is a truth about how life actually works. Everything you want to become is waiting inside the present moment. But it will only come alive when you decide to act in it, not delay it. Because in the end, your entire future is not hidden in tomorrow. It is quietly waiting inside what you choose to do right now. When people look at their life and feel stuck, confused, or dissatisfied, they often believe the problem is outside them. They blame their environment, their circumstances, their past, or even the people around them. But the uncomfortable truth is much deeper than that. Your environment is not the root problem. It is the reflection of your decisions. And until you change your decisions, you cannot expect your environment to change on its own. Because your environment is not something that appears randomly around you. It is something you continuously create through your choices. The people you spend time with, the habits you repeat, the places you go, the things you prioritize. All of these are not accidental. They are the result of repeated decisions you have been making over time. And slowly, those decisions shape the world you live in today. If your environment feels unproductive, it is usually because productivity was not chosen consistently. If your environment feels negative, it is often because negativity was allowed, tolerated, or not replaced with better influence. If your environment feels stagnant, it is because growth-oriented decisions were delayed or avoided. Life does not randomly place you in situations. Your choices guide you into them. And this is where the real shift in understanding happens. Most people try to fix their life by changing what is outside. New friends, new place, new opportunities. But they don't change the internal decisions that created their current situation. And because of that, even when the environment changes, the results stay the same, because the root pattern remains untouched. Your environment is like a mirror. It reflects your internal decision-making. If your decisions are inconsistent, your Environment becomes unstable. If your decisions are disciplined, your environment becomes structured. If your decisions are focused, your environment becomes productive. The outside world always adjusts itself according to what you repeatedly choose inside. That is why you cannot expect new results while repeating old decisions. It simply doesn't work that way. You cannot live a disciplined life with undisciplined choices. You cannot build a successful environment while consistently choosing comfort over effort. And you cannot expect growth while maintaining habits that avoid growth. The truth is, your environment will always respond to your level of commitment. If you decide to rise early, your environment slowly starts adapting to that routine. If you decide to focus on learning, your surroundings begin shifting toward knowledge. If you decide to distance yourself from distraction, your space naturally becomes more controlled and purposeful. Change always begins with decision first, environment follows later. But the opposite is also true. If you repeatedly choose delay, distraction, or avoidance, your environment will also reflect that. Time will feel wasted, goals will feel distant, and progress will feel slow. Not because life is against you, but because your decisions are not aligned with the environment you want. And here is something very important. Your current environment is not your final destination. It is just a temporary result of past decisions, which means it is not fixed. It is changeable, but only if you change the decisions that created it in the first place, because you cannot rebuild your world without rebuilding your choices. Every strong transformation begins with one shift, deciding that your current environment is no longer acceptable for your future vision. That decision alone starts a chain reaction, because once you decide differently, you start acting differently. And when your actions change, your environment has no choice but to adjust. Slowly, new habits replace old ones. New people enter a circle. New opportunities become visible. And the same environment that once felt limiting starts becoming more aligned with your growth. But it all starts from one simple truth. Nothing changes outside until something changes inside your decisions. So when you feel like your environment is holding you back, the first question is not, why is this happening to me? The real question is, what decisions did I make that created this? Because in that answer lies the power to change everything. And once you understand this deeply, you realize something powerful. You are never trapped in your environment. You are simply surrounded by the outcomes of your own decisions, and that means you also hold the power to change it. Every decision you make in life carries a hidden price. And most people don't realize it in the moment, because the cost is not always immediate. Sometimes you feel the reward right away, but the cost shows up later. And sometimes you feel the difficulty right away, but the reward builds slowly over time. That is the hidden reality of life. Nothing comes without a price. The only question is, what price are you willing to pay? Because in every moment of choice you are standing between two costs. One is the cost of discipline, the other is the cost of regret. Discipline feels heavy in the beginning. It demands effort, focus, consistency, and sacrifice. It asks you to do things when you don't feel like doing them. It forces you to grow when comfort is calling you back. But the result of discipline is progress, strength, and long-term success. On the other hand, regret feels easier in the beginning. It allows you to relax, to delay, to avoid pressure, to choose comfort over responsibility. It gives you temporary peace. But over time, that comfort turns into frustration. That ease turns into missed opportunities. And slowly, what felt light in the beginning becomes heavy in the long run. That is regret, the hidden cost that grows silently. And this is where most people get trapped without even realizing it. They choose the easy path today, not knowing they are collecting the difficult consequences for tomorrow. They skip effort today, not knowing they are building pressure for the future. They avoid discipline today, not knowing they are creating regret for later. Life always balances itself. Nothing is free, everything has a cost. Think about it deeply. When you choose discipline, you may feel tired in the moment, but you build control over your life. When you choose focus, you may feel uncomfortable at first, but you gain clarity and direction. When you choose consistency, you may not see instant results, but you build unstoppable momentum. Every difficult choice you make today is an investment into a stronger version of yourself tomorrow. But when you avoid discipline, when you choose distraction, when you keep delaying important things, it may feel easy right now, but it slowly builds pressure in the background. And that pressure doesn't disappear, it accumulates. It turns into stress, missed chances, and the feeling of being stuck while time keeps moving forward. This is why growth always feels difficult in the beginning, because you are paying the price up front. You are sacrificing comfort to build something better. But regret works in reverse. It gives you comfort first and then collects the price later when you are no longer prepared to pay it easily. And by that time, the cost feels heavier than you ever expected. Every successful person you see has paid the price of discipline. They chose effort when others chose ease. They chose focus when others chose distraction. They chose consistency when others chose delay. And because they paid the price early, they now enjoy the reward later. That is the rule of life. The timing of your payment decides the quality of your outcome. But the painful truth is that regret does not feel real until it is too late. At the moment of choice, it always feels like just one break, just one delay, or just one day off. But those small choices silently build a pattern, and that pattern becomes your reality. And when you finally notice it, reversing it takes much more effort than preventing it in the first place. That is why every decision matters more than it appears. Because you are not just choosing an action, you are choosing a future cost. Either you pay now through discipline or you pay later through regret. There is no third option. There is no free path. There is only timing of payment. And once you truly understand this, your mindset begins to shift. You stop asking, "Is this easy?" and start asking, "What will this cost me later?" You stop chasing comfort blindly and start thinking about consequences, because awareness changes everything. Once you see the hidden price behind every decision, you become more careful with how you live your time. So when I say every decision has a cost, I am reminding you of something very important. You are already paying something right now. The only question is whether you are paying it in discipline that builds your future or in regret that limits it. And the direction of your life depends on which cost you choose to accept today. When you reach the deepest level of understanding about life, you realize something powerful. You are not just living days. You are slowly becoming someone. Every decision you make, every habit you repeat, every action you choose is not just affecting your situation, it is shaping your identity. And that is why one strong decision has the power to rewrite who you are becoming. Because identity is not something you are born with. It is something that is built over time through repeated choices. You don't suddenly become a disciplined person, a focused person, or a successful person. You become that version of yourself through consistent decisions that slowly shape your behavior until it becomes your nature. And once something becomes your nature, it becomes your identity. Think about it. Everything you call yourself today is actually a collection of decisions you made in the past. The way you think, the way you act, the way you respond to pressure, the way you manage your time, all of it is not random. It is trained behavior created through repetition. And that means if your identity was built through decisions, it can also be rebuilt through decisions. This is where transformation truly begins. Because at some point in life, you reach a moment where you realize, I don't want to remain the same version of myself anymore. And in that moment, everything changes. Not instantly in results, but instantly in direction. That is the moment where identity starts to shift. A single decision like, I will take responsibility from today, or I will not waste my time anymore, or I will become consistent no matter how I feel, may look small in words, but it is extremely powerful in effect. Because that decision does not just change what you do, it changes how you see yourself. And once your self-image starts changing, your actions naturally follow. The strongest transformations in life always start internally. No one sees them at first. There is no applause, no recognition, no external validation. It is just a quiet decision made in silence. But that silent decision slowly begins to change habits. And those habits begin to change results. And those results begin to change identity. That is how real transformation works. But the opposite is also true. If you repeatedly decide to avoid effort, to delay responsibility, to choose comfort over growth, then that too becomes identity. Not through one big failure, but through small repeated patterns. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to see yourself differently. Not as someone capable of change, but as someone stuck in the same cycle. That is why identity is so powerful. Because once you believe something about yourself for long enough, it starts influencing your decisions. And those decisions then reinforce the same belief. It becomes a loop, a cycle. And breaking that cycle does not start with results. It starts with one conscious decision to become something different. Every successful person you admire went through this exact shift. There was a moment when they didn't just want success, they decided to become the kind of person who creates success. That shift in identity is what changed everything. Not motivation, not luck, not circumstances, but a decision to become. And the most important part is this: you don't need permission to change your identity. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need approval from anyone. All you need is one strong decision that says, from today, I will no longer act like the old version of myself. That single decision starts the rewriting process, because once you decide differently, you start acting differently. And when you act differently repeatedly, you start thinking differently. And when your thinking changes, your identity begins to shift naturally. That is how powerful a single decision can be. It doesn't just change your actions, it changes your entire inner structure. But this transformation requires consistency. One decision is the beginning, but repetition is what makes it real. You cannot rewrite identity in one moment, but you can start rewriting it in one moment. And from that moment forward, every choice either strengthens the new version of you or pulls you back to the old one. So when I say one strong decision can rewrite your identity, I am talking about a moment of awareness where you stop living as who you were and start building who you are meant to become. Because in the end, you are not fixed. You are not finished. You are constantly being rewritten by the decisions you choose to repeat every single day. So make one strong decision, because that single choice can rewrite your identity and change everything that follows.